Occupy yourself with music, definitely the word, and a lot of information, especially what's going on the earth right now. So the lineup begins tomorrow morning with Patient Saints, and it'll carry it right on to the last show, which is Wisdom Crieth out outside of Austin.
Wake up to the Patient Saints, go ahead and grab your coffee. This truth is spreading across the globe. Our hidden history's alive with Deacon, take us through them times. Painted black faces right now, you know this not Jesus Christ. Raving the wolves, we prophesying in the fire booth. Bringing more fire, word to Deacon Malachi. You the ending in the lion's den. We got the current events, wisdom crying out at 9 o'clock. Come listen, we gon' set it off on Sundays.
Yeah, I'm finished now.
All right.
I'm done. I know. I'm sorry.
I gotta ask for clarification now.
Yeah.
All right,
No. I'm sorry. Let's go. Let's move on.
All right, we're going to go on to the segment of the show, Hebrew History, where we bring our history of the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, but especially you Hispanics, because you Hispanics like to separate themselves from us.
Right.
When you guys are just fair-skinned niggas.
I see, yes.
So we're going to bring out some history about the Hispanics that was happening in El Paso in Texas at the border of Texas. And we're going to see what your friendly neighborhood white man was doing to you Hispanics.
Oh, that's
a bag of chips.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was. Damn.
Oh,
All right, so
was that a bag of chips? What
That was it?
Yeah, no, let's get it. Let's get it. Pull it up.
What was it? That's a nice coffee right there. Oh, my name on it.
Disclaimer. Yeah, we're going to play the video.
yeah.
So it's called The Dark History of Gasoline Baths at the Border.
Everything we know about Carmelita Torres is from a few newspaper accounts in 1917. They called her an auburn-haired Amazon, just 17 years old. She led angry women in anti-American rioting and shut down the U.S.-Mexico border. But hidden within her story is something much bigger than a single riot. It's a story about American paranoia at the border, about a toxic campaign of disinfection and discrimination, and a U.S. practice that would go on to inspire Nazi scientists.
Stop real quick. Did you guys catch what they just said? They said that they did a U.S. practice to you so-called Mexicans that inspired what happened in Germany.
Right. So this was
and
the Holocaust
Nazis.
before the Holocaust.
This was the Holocaust before the Holocaust.
And you know something?
Damn.
You don't. Damn. Majority of people never heard this history before. I'm telling you, these Edomites is evil. Let's play it. Let's go play.
At the border between El Paso, Texas and Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, thousands of people cross back and forth for work and school every day. They line up in Juarez and often wait for hours to get through the U.S. checkpoint. But the border didn't always look like this.
Crossing this border used to be free and unrestricted. People would come and go without a passport. But after 1917, Juarez and El Paso became two separate communities.
It was a turbulent year at the border. The Mexican Revolution was ongoing, and the U.S. was about to enter World War I.
All of a sudden, you have the war hysteria created by World War I. People here in El Paso that are deadly afraid that the Germans are going to attack from Ciudad Juarez.
The fear of invasion brought tensions to the border, while across the U.S., a different movement was gaining strength. The eugenics movement, based on junk science, aimed to create a genetically and morally superior population. That meant stricter controls on immigration, only allowing those deemed fit to enter. On Ellis Island, one of the busiest ports of entry at the time, U.S. health officials were tasked with weeding out immigrants they thought were unfit or disease carriers. And across the country, that process coincided with the stereotyping of Mexicans as inferior and unclean. Dozens of film titles included the word greaser, a derogatory term used to describe Mexicans.
Stop. So it's letting you know, because a lot of times when we look in history, we see those black face and we see that and we correlate that with the black history, right? But they were doing the same thing for you Hispanics.
Right.
For you, making mockery, stereotyping, making shows about you Hispanics, saying that you guys are inferior, choosing who can come where and who can go where.
Right. And they got something also called, you know, we had Jim Crow, right, with the so-called Judah, the Southern Kingdom. They have something called the Juan Crow. Look it up when you get a chance, called the Juan Crow. They was treating the so-called Hispanics the same way they was dealing with us, all right? So we are the same people. Dang. Play on.
This racist sentiment was strong at the U.S.-Mexico border. El Paso's mayor, Tom Lee, had developed an obsession with cleanliness, and it defined his political platform.
This obsession with not only racial purity, but physical purity. He was going to literally clean up El Paso from all these bad elements. And by bad elements, he often meant racially bad elements.
One of Mayor Lee's biggest fears was a disease called typhus, spread by lice. So, under the pretense of sanitary betterment work, he helped lead a campaign to inspect every house in a predominantly Mexican neighborhood. If the inspectors found lice, occupants were forced to take vinegar and kerosene baths, have their heads shaved, and clothing burned. Hundreds of homes were eventually destroyed. Lee also expanded the supposed health measures to include inmates in the El Paso jail.
They had to strip naked, take a bath inside a tub full of kerosene, and on one occasion, it seems somebody lit a match.
27 prisoners, majority Mexican or Mexican American, burned to death in the fire.
Pause. So he said in one occasion, somebody supposedly lit a match. That match wasn't lit by mistake.
Right.
That match was lit to set an example to you so-called Mexicans. From back then to now, they've never wanted you over here. They've always separated you guys from them. But you so-called Mexicans always want to assimilate with these Edomites.
And then the heavy point about that you're saying, Officer David, you have the audacity now, when our Levite brothers and sisters is coming over there, now you want to make yourself seem like you the so-called white man and try to push them away.
That you in the spirit, because that's what they doing in the caravan. That's what they doing. You got the so-called Hispanic, Zebulon, Issachar, and Asher oppressing Levi in the caravan when they in the same condition. Real quick, let me get 2nd Ezra 11:42, real quick. Just to show that how since 1492, since the conquistadors came over here, they always oppressed our people, slaughtered, raped, robbed, and murdered our people. They hate the so-called Hispanics, all right? Read that for me real quick.
2nd Ezra chapter 11, verse 42. For thou hast afflicted the meek, thou hast hurt the peaceable, thou hast loved liars, and destroyed the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit, and has cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm.
Right, so the so-called Hispanics, Northern Kingdom, they didn't do no harm when the conquistadors came over here, right? They taught them how to dwell in the land. They showed them their diamonds, their rubies, and Esau took advantage. Esau conquered them and pillaged the land, colonized the land, took them over, okay?
Right. You know, they try to make like Issachar, like these people were savages or whatever. Listen, when those mongrels, Esau, came to America, Issachar had massive cities.
Right.
They wasn't like behind in anything at all. But I'm going to touch something else. They said they dipped them in kerosene. There is a disease called tumorogenesis. Kerosene that seeps into your skin like that, it begins to mutate your DNA cells. That brings on cancer. These people That was good, right? Saturday? Going too
Devils.
far. I caught myself. These mongrels, I'm telling you, that their wickedness is beyond measure. We are not wired like that, the children of God. These people have no morals. And they were doing this to women. I hope it plays in this thing they show. They was making women, young girls, strip naked in front of everybody, men, everything, and they was dip them in kerosene. They was raping, molesting these women. I'm telling you, don't think Esau wasn't sleeping with them. Esau's animals. Some people are savages.
Right.
They look at them less than human, but they'll sleep with them. Don't think they won't. Yeah, play it on. Tumorogenesis. Look it up.
The newspaper is called the Jail Holocaust. But despite the tragic fire, Merrily pushed forward with even more aggressive plans.
He sends a telegram, a Western Union telegram, to Rupert Blue, who was the Surgeon General up in Washington, D.C. And basically, well, let me just read it. Hundreds dirty, lousy, destitute Mexicans arriving at El Paso daily will undoubtedly bring and spread typhus unless a quarantine is placed at once.
The government didn't agree to a full quarantine because evidence suggested that typhus wasn't a major threat in the area. But instead, they funded a new disinfection plant at the border in 1916. In this facility, every immigrant considered a second-class citizen
Hey, real
had
quick,
to strip
pause it real
naked.
quick.
Their
I don't want
clothes were
to
sent to
go over it. If you see right back in the day, they said, "Hey, we gotta do a quarantine because we don't want them to spread this disease, so he could push his agenda."
Right.
Correlate it to today with the jab and everything that's happening. They say, "Okay, let's quarantine, and so we don't want this disease to spread." But there's always a hidden agenda that they have, and that hidden agenda is always going to affect the Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. I don't want to be like, oh, we some conspiracy theorists or nothing, but I'm telling you, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
Yeah. So real quick, I want to touch this because we hear about Issachar coming over the border into El Paso, these places to work. They were coming over the border, many of them, because they was fleeing the white Spaniard that was afflicting them and was killing them. So they was they were stuck between. Damn, they cut us off. So,
Bishop, when I seen this, because this is something that we never seen before. We're learning this. No, I'm saying I know that they're shutting this down, but I was thinking that in my head, like, if we're pushing this kind of stuff out, this information, I knew they was going to try to cut something off or do something, just like they've been doing on our classes and stuff like that.
So let me ask you a question. When they cut us off, that means we can't get back on?
No, keep teaching, Bishop. We on our
No, I'm asking, when they cut us off YouTube, that means they won't let us back on? But we're on something else? Okay.
Yeah, we on Austin.
So, go on. What, I don't even know how to work this thing. I'm from the 8-track generation. So this shit, y'all ain't good. Anyway, good everybody. So anyway, the reason why they were coming over the border is because they stuck between Satan and the devil. So they're trying to escape. Like that happened to us when we was dealing back in the Maccabees.
Right.
We were making leagues with Rome because we was catching hell from the Greeks. It's like, half a dozen, you're trying to figure out how to make it. So they're fleeing from there, and remember, what he said, typhus comes from infections from mice and fleas. Don't think Issachar, that was the state they lived in.
Right.
They were forced to those states because the Spaniards, let me tell you something about Esau. As bad as the English Edomite was, the Spaniards these people were sadistic. They was a different type of ones. English understood we're going to make money with these Negroes. Spaniards just killed them just for sport. It was fun for them. They was totally different. So a lot of Issachar was fleeing from that. And then the little ground they was holding, they had to fight. Let me tell you something. Issachar was stuck in a bad place.
That's that two burdens.
Yeah, they was two burdens. They was catching it. They was catching it.
That's that two
so
burdens.
We see this, and a lot of us, we don't hear this history. A lot of Issachar don't know their own history.
Right.
that they were oppressed by the Spaniard. Then they came back and had to deal with the Englishmen oppressing them and killing them. So you're running from him, and they're going to dip you in kerosene.
Play on.
A large steam dryer and then fumigated with toxic pesticides inside the gas room.
Go back a little bit.
They funded a new disinfection plant at the border in 1916. In this facility, every immigrant considered a second-class citizen had to strip naked. Their clothes were sent to a large steam dryer and then fumigated with toxic pesticides inside the gas room. An inspector would check each person's body, including private parts, for lice. If they found lice, immigrants would have to shave their head and body hair.
So let me ask you a question. You know how my mind works. I paint the picture. You think anybody wasn't sticking his finger up their butt, sticking them women's vaginas and whatever? You understand when you fumigate those clothes, all that clothes is poisonous now, and they put that back on their body. Even right now, you go spray Roundup to kill the weeds around your house. Don't mess with that stuff. Don't mess with that Roundup, spray that stuff. You breathe that stuff in, people end up with friggin', what's the cancer again? I forgot the name of it, the cancer. Anyway, they have cancer cause. It's big, you could Google it. So don't ever spray Roundup to kill weeds around your house, especially if you don't have no mask on. And I'm not talking about those little fake masks that you wear with the poke. I'm talking about those, what's it called again?
Like the N95 or whatever.
Whatever, the thing on the side you're breathing, you know.
Oh, what you call it?
Yeah. Right. So now they spray his clothes, then they give it back to them. You think they said, Mr. Rodriguez, this is yours, and Mr. Cortez, take a pair of pants, take whatever, you put whatever you on. Put it back on, and you walk around with all that pesticide seeping into your skin. People's dying of all kind of diseases behind that stuff. This is a light version of it. Just like slavery, they give us the stuff we watch on TV is the light version of what really happened.
Right.
Old mind can't conceive what really happened to old people. Get it? Don't get mad. This is the history.
Right.
Like you act like I didn't make that picture. You know, I didn't write this story. I'm just narrating what I'm seeing. Let's go.
Play the video.
And bathe in a mix of kerosene and vinegar. Some even had their eyelids checked for things like pink eye, and many had to complete puzzles or simple IQ tests to prove that they were fit for entry. After this process, they'd receive a ticket as proof that they were disinfected, but they would need to go through this every 8 days in order to re-enter the U.S.
So many people didn't speak about it. They didn't talk about this humiliating process, like they kind of internalized it. It's that psychology of shame.
The toxic baths and dehumanizing inspections at the border set the stage for a revolt, led by the 17-year-old maid from Juarez who defied the order to bathe.
Carmelita Torres I've compared her to the Rosa Parks of the border. In the morning of January 28th, 1917, there's this electric trolley full of mostly women that are crossing every day. She convinces the majority, if not all, the women in that trolley to just say no and to refuse. And they start a spontaneous protest.
There are accounts that in addition to the humiliating delousing procedures, for women, there was also sexual humiliation.
There were rumors that, when they entered the plant and then they were told to strip, officers were taking their photos and then posting them in bars. So I can't even imagine the kind of feeling, like the feelings of violation and the feelings of outrage.
She was called an instigator, a ringleader, but she was
go back a little bit.
A young woman
go
that
back.
was just
okay, right there. Don't pause it.
And the feelings.
Let's pause it. So, you think they was just taking pictures?
That's what I said. They was smashing.
Carmelita Torres like the pinchy gringo. No, they didn't touch him.
They was smashing.
They had enough of that stuff. They wasn't going. Now, sidebar. That's not what I want to talk about. What I really want to talk about is her. Who moved it? I'm going crazy. I just pause. Who had the bright idea to move it? Okay, go back a little bit. Now play it and stop when you get to her.
Rumors that, when they entered the
No, keep on playing. I'll tell you
the
something.
plant, and then they were told to strip. Officers were taking their photos and then posting them in bars. So I can't even imagine the kind of feeling, like the feelings
Stop.
of violence.
Okay, so sisters, let me help you all out. Not you all, but this is the reason why you don't get tattoos. Because you get old and they start looking like that. It's a sin. It's a sin, first of all. You can't print marks on your body. But these women, all you young girls getting tattoos, and then you get old, your breasts be sagging, the tattoo be all hanging down to your ankle. That is disgusting.
Went from a horse to a giraffe.
Boy, ain't no way, boy.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I just saw it on her arm. I'm like, who was she in her day with that tattoo on her arm?
You got Popeye arms.
Yeah, I'm about to say. Go ahead. Well, I'm just saying. That's what I look at.
Elation and the feelings of, outrage.
She was called an instigator, a ringleader, but she was just a young woman that was just sick of the injustice, of the humiliation that other women had gone through.
What started with just 200 protesters that morning slowly grew to a crowd of 2,000. Reporters said the scene reminded one of bees swarming. The hands of the feminine mob would claw at the tops of the passing cars. When the American officers tried to disperse the crowd, they were met with bottles, rocks, and insults. Protesters even laid down on the tracks in front of the trolley cars to create a blockade. They were joined by men in what's called the Bath Riots, and they shut down this border for 2 days.
And then all you hear is that the ringleaders are arrested, and a few of the men are publicly executed.
As for Carmelita Torres,
it appears like she was thrown in prison, and as historians, we don't know what happened to her afterwards. We've lost every trace.
Hey,
the
we know.
fumigations didn't stop.
Pause it real quick. We know what happened to her.
Like we can't understand that. We don't know what
Tell
happened.
me what in those times, right? What leader that stood up for their people that did not get executed,
Right.
or exiled, or just vanished and get missing?
Right.
Because they're like, oh, we don't know what happened to her. They're like, oh, some men were publicly executed. Guess what? They had their way with her,
Right.
and they said,
And they
that's
made an
it for you.
example out of her.
Of
Best
course.
believe they made an example out of her, because like you said, anytime a revolutionary steps up, speaks up for the oppression of their people, they make an example out of them. We had Nat Turner, all these great leaders that we had, right? Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King, they all did the same thing.
Look at even the prophets in the Bible.
The prophets in
Same
the Bible,
thing.
same thing. You in the spirit. You in the spirit. The same thing. That's their fate, okay?
after the riots. In 1917 alone, over 100,000 Mexicans were deloused at the border. That same year, an immigration law made border procedures even more rigid. Immigrants at all points of entry needed to have a passport, take a literacy test, and many would have to pay an $8 head tax. And later that year, the U.S. Public Health Service laid down instructions for border agents about who should be kept out of the country.
Imbeciles, idiots, feeble-minded persons, physical defectives, persons afflicted with loathsome or dangerous contagious diseases.
The discriminatory policies at the border resembled horrific events elsewhere in the world. In fact, while researching this, David stumbled upon a detail. The fumigation of Mexican immigrants wasn't just reminiscent of Nazi Germany, it was directly linked to it.
It's not so much that the United States was copying Nazi Germany, it's the opposite.
Stop. So for you Mexicans out there, you guys were the guinea pig to what happened in the Holocaust. Right. And they to this day, they commemorate the Holocaust. Right. But where's the commemoration and the remorse for what they did to our brothers and sisters down in the border?
Right. They gave you Cinco de Mayo.
Damn. Give you sin. Damn.
Yeah, you got you know, you get 50 cents Coronas.
But that's why it's so important, you know, all y'all that's tuning into this, that you teach your children, stop giving them all these social media, you know, Instagram accounts and all these things like that. These are the things that you're supposed to be teaching them, because I'm finding out, you know, just this week about this I never knew anything about. But we go to school every day, what we was taught when we was young, about the Holocaust, about us being in slavery. But now we having hidden Jews that we're bringing out now. That's why it's very important that these children heads need to be in the book. We can read now. That was Esau's biggest mistake, is to allow the black, Hispanic, and Native American man to read. Now that we're reading, we're pulling out all this information and we're blasting you every single time we get a chance, Esau.
Hey, real talk. When you get a chance, not here, but everybody listening, look it up on your own. In Puerto Rico, and I think this was like in the early 1900s, they were offering free dental care. And what they were doing was sterilizing a woman. They would put them under and sterilize them because they was trying to stop the population growth. So it happened in Puerto Rico too. This is a concerted effort by your enemies to depopulate, to dehumanize, to stop us as a people. And I tell you, one of the biggest technologies today is that now, because we speak different languages, Spanish, English, and French, we think we're different people. Meanwhile, we're in the same slums and ghettos, same prison houses. The same things are happening to us. And we still, for some reason, can't make the connect that we're all the same people. We think because we have different complexions that we're different people. It has nothing to do with it. Has nothing to do with it. I'm telling you something. And I'm telling you, these women was tired of being sexually, every 8 days, some cracker got his finger up in your twat. It's like, I had enough. I'm not dealing with this crap no more. And they flipped. For the women to flip like that, trust me, they was being abused. Tired of this stuff. 17 years old, I've got to go through this stuff. I'm young. Some of the older ladies, like, whatever, they had enough of this stuff. They dehumanize you. And you know Esau's sick. They sleep with dogs and all kind of animals and whatever. They don't got none. Please, they sleep with goats. And anyway, let's move on.
Let's finish off the video.
See, Germany was copying the United States.
He found that in the 1920s, the US started using Zyklon B, an extremely poisonous acid gas, to fumigate clothing at the border. And in 1937, in a German pest science journal, a scientist called for the use of Zyklon B in Nazi disinfection chambers. He included 2 photos of El Paso's delousing chambers as an example of how effective Zyklon B had been at the US border to kill unwanted pests. The same scientist pushed to use it to disinfect concentration.
Stop. Hold on. Gerard Peters. Thank you. Go ahead.
Camps. And eventually, it was used in concentrated doses to murder millions of people.
People, rightly so, say you can't compare what happened in Nazi Germany with other parts of the world. And that's true. In terms of Zyklon B, it was used on the border not to intentionally kill Mexican border crossers. But
Stop. And that's the problem.
I told you, Christianity. Christianity is why he's saying that. You know what he's trying to say? Listen, that wasn't right. So what do you think it was?
Right.
You think they just want to wash your clothes for you? You think that's all it was washing your clothes? If they was really concerned about the spread of lice or whatever it might be, all right, fine, okay, whatever. You're going to tell me that having an open strip search and police, or they check you and find, it's not like there's like, you know, this is a registered nurse or a doctor to treat you. It's Chuck, the patrol guy, with his nightstick. What do you think this was about? And then this guy, here we go. This is why we're in a condition, because he just can't call it. You know what? With the Holocaust, them Edomites that was going against the other Edomites, they still to this day is like, you killed my great-grandfather.
Right.
Your great-grandfather, and I want to kill you now. They still, dudes be 105 years old, they be dragging them off to prison. They're still looking for them. But here you go. Why? Because you got white Jesus on your mind. I tell you, man. Christianity is white supremacy.
And not only he has white Jesus on his mind, he thinks he's an Edomite.
Right.
That's the problem. He's like, yeah, it wasn't intentional. Yes, Negro, it was intentional.
Damn.
They don't like you.
Like y'all said earlier, that's what happens when you into Christianity, your whole mindset changes. Now you want to love everybody. And that's why they have all these holidays, Christmas to make sure you get rocked back to sleep, Easter to make sure you get rocked back to sleep, Lent Day, all the other heathen customs that they have is just to rock you right back to sleep so you can look at the white man as Jesus or superior than you.
And let me get a scripture right quick if I can. Let me get Daniel chapter 9, verse 12. Because what he's doing is he's trying to downplay the oppression and everything that his people went through, right? And trying to make it seem like, oh, the so-called Jewish people, right, their Holocaust was worse. Like, no, this is what God says. Read that.
Daniel chapter 9, verse 12.
Bring it out.
And he hath confirmed his words, which he spake against us and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil.
A what?
Great evil. For under the whole heaven hath not been done as hath been done upon Jerusalem.
So God is saying, you so-called Hispanics, y'all went through that great evil. That great evil y'all went through, can't nobody else come close to that. To hell with the Holocaust, to hell with Anne Frank, to hell with all of that. God says, y'all been through that. You got to wake up, man. Get white Jesus out your mind.
That's right.
Damn, Anne Frank.
Go ahead, finish that video out.
Book.
The history of something like the Holocaust doesn't take place in a vacuum.
A few decades after the Bath riots, Mexico started sending men to work on U.S. farms and railroads as part of a new labor agreement called the Bracero Program. And through the program, the border disinfections continued.
Here in this facility, some migrants were sprayed with insecticides.
This time, it was a substance called DDT,
Dichloro-diphenyl-trichloroethane,
a toxic pesticide which decades later would be banned for agricultural use by most developed countries.
Repeated contact must be avoided.
They were sprayed in the face. They were sprayed in their private parts. And, they were stripped naked and inspected. And sometimes they're inspected like you would inspect livestock.
First-hand accounts from immigrants in the program reveal how little they knew about the fumigations.
So they talk about how humiliating it was, about why do they think we're so dirty? They'll call it the white powder. I don't know if they necessarily were told we're spraying you with DDT, but they'll call it polvo, the powder.
A miraculous white powder that is helping to win the war against disease.
Many of the employees who worked in the facilities weren't given many details either.
When I first started, my role was a clerk. I got the job mainly because I spoke Spanish. There was a hut in the area when they came in from the Mexican side that they were going there, and they had some sort of, it was for lice.
Hey, pause it right quick. So they got their own, they hired Issachar to kill Issachar, right? That's what they doing. This is crazy. It don't make no sense. And like she said, she didn't understand what she was doing, but Esau knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. The sister speaks Spanish. Let's set her up so they would think it's friendly. It's all good, right? They call it the white powder. It's harmless, but Esau's crafty. Never trust thy enemy, y'all. Play that.
That it was, to disinfect for lice. And we never gave it much thought, but we did think, that's sort of like what the Nazis used to do, to the Jews.
I had heard during lunch breaks that they would spray them, and sometimes there were comments from the men themselves that they would put a hose to them. I don't know if they knew what they were doing to them. I certainly didn't know, It was far-fetched from the world we lived in.
It wasn't until the 1960s, when the Bracero program ended, that health authorities acknowledged the chemicals were dangerous and the baths and fumigations were finally discontinued.
You want history to be about progress, about everybody realizes how horrible it is, and then it stops. Unfortunately, that's how it works in movies, but this was the border, right? And in the border, a lot of things never become resolved. They just keep on repeating themselves.
Decades after the disinfection campaign ended, the language, the strategy, and the dehumanizing politics of fear and exclusion still linger.
It's a health issue, too, because we don't know what people have coming in here.
They're coming in with diseases such as smallpox and leprosy and TB that are going to affect our people in the United States.
It's just a fact. You're going to see disease outbreak. Apprehensions in the El Paso area specifically have spiked more than 600%.
They are essentially being warehoused, as many as 300 children in a cell.
Without adequate food, water, and sanitation.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border.
I don't like anything compared to the Holocaust.
But why can't you compare it, his practices, to what led up to the Holocaust? Do we have to wait for the actual Holocaust before we speak out?
At the border between Juarez and El Paso, the same space where the Bath riots once happened, hundreds of migrants have been huddled in makeshift detention centers. They've been waiting to find out if the U.S. government deems them fit for entry.
As always,
Yeah,
there's
you
so
can
much
stop it.
information that we couldn't fit in this video,
But like we said before, man, when are you Hispanics gonna wake up? It happened since the 1917, and it's what, 2022?
Right. Go back a little bit.
And it's
Just
still
click-
happening.
Click back on that screen. Don't play it. Stop right there. Look at the producers. Elam, so-called Jew. Executive producer, Elam. It wasn't even our own people that put this out.
Because our own people don't even care.
We used to scream Black Power while heroin was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. Iuic has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission. Minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold, from Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are how men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. Iuic, we deliver the truth.